I'm the original jazz imposter, obviously. I wanted to talk about what my strategy has been for the last 2.5 years as regards to jazz and why I've done what I've done, and then I think why I'm moving on to a kind of newer phase with what I'm doing. So, a little bit of backstory. Since sort of I was around 16 maybe, I started to have an interest in jazz and, trying to play that sort of thing, and not necessarily with much success and not really with much of an idea of where I should have started or what would have been useful. But sort of listening to Pat Metheny and a few things like that was basically the extent of what I would do, and then sort of muddling around looking at kind of books, I guess. So like the Jodie Fisher stuff, where you'd have 2-5-1 licks, and looking at the stuff that people said was important at the time. So whether that might be arpeggios or 2-5-1 licks, those were sort of the big kind of key words. But then I guess probably midway through 2017, towards the end of 2017, I started seeing kind of real jazz players like Jonathan Kreisberg, Gilad Hexelman, Ben Wendell, maybe even Bob Reynolds, and watching some of their interviews and stuff, and delving into their thoughts on jazz practice and stuff. And one of the kind of common threads seemed to be that actually there was a huge importance placed on tunes, and up till this point that really wasn't a thing that I'd worked much on. Maybe I knew a handful of tunes, and maybe I gigged a bunch of tunes, so I sort of learnt maybe I would have known about 30 tunes, your bog standard stuff, whether that's My Funny Valentine or Autumn Leaves or things like that. And the things that you actually end up playing if you're on like a gypsy jazz gig, where you're playing things like Lady Be Good, or some of this kind of early jazz stuff, minor swing. So, and then I listened to Jonathan Kreisberg, and I think he said, a teacher said to him around sort of the 17, 18-year-old age, around that age, I think the focus, he said, just learn loads and loads and loads of tunes. And so that sort of resonated with me. And so my aim, and what I started in January 2018, was to learn a new jazz tune a week and just focus on playing that tune. So focus on the melody, then try and bring in the chords, put together a chord melody, and by the end of the week be able to play a chord melody to some level, and without writing any of this stuff down, but to be able to play it and then to improvise over the changes to a level that I was kind of happy enough to upload it. So I'll just scroll through the screen now, how many tunes that is. I think I've almost certainly missed a few, but it's sort of around 120 tunes. So I guess if you do the math and it's one a week, there should be, around about 120, 130 tunes. And so what does that mean? I guess that means that I've now learned and touched on quite a lot of different aspects of jazz, and I guess I could talk quickly about what I would suggest is maybe a way through this sort of stuff. So I literally just followed inspiration for all of this. So if it comes to Sunday, you're looking for a jazz tune that you're going to start working on the Monday, where are you going to look? So Chet Baker was one place that I looked a lot. Peggy Lee, someone like that. Looking for tunes that I like the sound of. Or I might look for a Jonathan Kreisberg standard that I'd like, that I'd heard him play. So like The Song Is You, I think I remember him showing it or playing a clip, or Body and Soul, and that's the reason that I learnt those tunes. There's some tunes that I just heard, or songs that I knew from films, or that I knew that I'd heard from films, like a tune from Toy Story 2, When She Loved Me. And I thought, well, that is completely valid for playing in like a jazz context. And so that became something that I'd work on. or maybe it's a Pat Metheny tune, maybe it's just a classic jazz standard like All the Things You Are. It's obvious why you might select a tune like that, because it's a common tune. But similarly to how I might watch films, you might find a composer that you particularly like the sound of, like Victor Young or someone like that, or David Raskin, who I've recently found thanks to Mike Marino. And then I think you find yourself these little avenues that you can check out that kind of inspire you. So, for instance, if I was watching films, there would be a phase where I'd watch like a few Daniel Day-Lewis tunes in a row, or a few Christian Bale films, or something by the director Christopher Nolan. If I like that, I might check out another film. So I treat the jazz tunes and trying to figure out my way through the jazz canon, if you like, similarly. So there's like a few Miles Davis tunes there. There's a lot of tunes that Chet Baker might have recorded, so that's like one angle. There's the kind of jazz classic corner, where you've got My Funny Valentine, you've got things like Georgia on My Mind, or What a Difference a Day Made, just classic kind of jazz tunes. So that's, I think, a good way to start broadening your kind of jazz knowledge, and I think a way to kind of get past that jazz imposter feeling. The fact that I've played and learned and can probably sing most of like 130 jazz tunes is something that helps me to get past that feeling of, I think jazz imposter syndrome is probably a real thing for many guitarists. It is for me anyway. So, but learning all those tunes and them being there in the back of my mind has sort of helped to get past that. And do I honestly care what other people think of it? Not too much, because it's enjoyable just to play those tunes. So moving on to the next phase, what I'm thinking I'll do is I'll limit my scope a bit further. So, I've got a list of 130 tunes, but if you look at, say, like Bill Evans' recorded history, over his entire career, maybe there's around 130 tunes, but not over a 2-year period. So I'm thinking maybe I can get some better results and some more meaningful understanding of these tunes if I really focus on them. So what if, for instance, like tunes that I know completely inside out and there's no surprises and I think I could play them in any key, something like Autumn Leaves. What if I had sort of 20 tunes that I could kind of play like that? And so what I think I'm going to do is choose maybe like a top 20 and try and focus on them. So maybe I end up doing like 4 tunes a month, and there'll be some repetition, or I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to do it. What I want is to end up with a narrower focus on a few tunes, so maybe 20, maybe like a set's worth of tunes, but to be able to play those to a level more than I can play even the ones that I focused on for a week. Because, if I'm doing this kind of weekly thing, there'll be tunes that I've played and then maybe I revisit them a year later, or maybe I don't, but I really only know them more than a surface level, but not at a level like I know Autumn Leaves, if that makes sense. So the tunes that I've highlighted here that I really enjoy playing, My Favourite Things, Danny Boy, Georgia on My Mind, When I Fall in Love, My Foolish Heart, I Fall in Love Too Easily, What a Difference a Day Made, But Not For Me, Just Friends, Body and Soul, so that's 10, Autumn in New York, Bye Bye Blackbird, How Deep is the Ocean, Someone to Watch Over Me, Strasbourg St. Denis, which is like I don't know if I'm even saying that properly, St. Denis, probably, Roy Hargrove tune, great tune, I Get Along Without You Very Well, A Child is Born, Time After Time, Pretend, I've lost count now, Stella by Starlight, I guess it's got to be on there, and then some recent ones that I really like, Laura by David Raskin and Love Is For the Very Young, Pure Imagination. and maybe invitation. So it's going to be a really hard list to try and put together, but I think I'm going to narrow that down and put that on my Patreon. I think then we can focus a bit more on those, and maybe that will enable me to give a more meaningful kind of overview on some of these tunes. This kind of mini list is one that I can maybe change over time, but to have like a sort of stable of tunes that I play more often than others, and that are sort of my kind of go-to standards. So, you know, practicing concepts, I might take them through that, and tunes that I will know to a level like I know Autumn Leaves, where it's like falling off a log to play it. So that's what I'm thinking. I'm going to do a short bit of playing at the end of this video, but hopefully I'll be able to put up the master list, and yeah, maybe that's interesting. Hopefully it is. If you like what I'm doing on the channel, you could support on Patreon, or there's this buy me a coffee link, but liking and subscribing would help. In terms of learning more jazz tunes, I think I'm not gonna be too prescriptive. You know, if I hear a tune like Mike Marino turned me on to Wayne Shorter tune, something for Albert. This is for Albert, I think it was called. But I want to learn that one at some point. So, you know, I'm not going to be too regimented about never learning new tunes, or, you know, only focusing on these 20. But to have these kind of 20 tunes as a thing that I go for more often, you know. So instead of playing, you know, Autumn Leaves or whatever, or noodling through stuff, I could pick one of those tunes for a day or for the week, and hopefully start to know more about that tune. If that makes sense. Thank you for watching.